partnership is that we will have access to cheaper funding, which we can pass the benefits to the aspiring entrepreneurs. And in the process, we'll be able to save jobs as well.
And at what rate will this bond be priced at?
The bond will be priced at 5%. Ordinarily, I mean, if we were to go out into the market, we'll be getting a pricing much, much higher than that, which makes this attractive. But also, it will be a fixed 5%, which even further, I mean, gives it an edge for people who want to access IDC funding. So naturally, when we lend the funds to the people, we'll include the cost of doing business. But because the base is low, we'll be able to pass a substantial chunk of the benefit to them.
So would you then say that fixed rate is a benefit to people who will be accessing this fund?
Absolutely, absolutely. Particularly for the SMEs, where with the interest rate fluctuating, it brings elements of uncertainty for their businesses. Now, if they know that for the 5-year period or for the loan of the period of the loan that they have a fixed interest rate, that will give them some certainty, particularly at the rate which will be very competitive.
If we look at the IDC, how much are you extending credit for this year, funding for this year?
For this year, we've placed a target of about 10 billion rand. So this comes in very handy. Obviously, for the next 5 years, we're looking at increasing that to about 80 billion in total. So it is important that we continue to access cheaper forms of financing so that we can pass the benefits.
And what sectors are you looking at there?
For this particular facility, we have not restricted it to any sectors. All the sectors that IDC tends to fund, this is about 14 odd sectors of those, because the main drivers for us is to find sectors where we can be able to create jobs. I mean, obviously sectors like agriculture, sectors like tourism, chemicals and all of those, metals and fabrication, will be able to benefit from those. But as long as we can make sure that people or the entrepreneurs are able to create jobs.
Okay. And what is your target for the first half of the year in terms of funding?
For this year, in particular for this facility, we're hoping by the end of May we would have drawn at least 500 million. But obviously we've got other sources of funding that we're looking at. But I think we have the balance sheet that can still be able to enable us to do even much more than that. Yeah.
And if we look at sectors within the economy, what trends have you noticed? Which sectors are still struggling and which are, if one can say, out of a recession?
Well, we've seen a mixed bag. The commodity sectors, like mining particularly, we've seen some recovery. I don't think we can say we can start to celebrate yet. I think we still have to exercise caution. But we've seen some recovery, largely because it's driven by what is happening globally, because those are export driven. But if we look at, obviously, tourism is still it's taking advantage of the event we're going to host now. I think we've seen that. Agriculture is also starting to come. I think that it's a mixed bag, but we're confident that I think the West, at least from what we're seeing, the West is over. Obviously, for the SMEs whom don't have the luxury really of accessing much more funding, we still have seen some cases where there's still a little bit of some sectors struggling. I think that will also be evident from our results, where we will see that we have seen some of the SMEs struggling a bit here.
If we look at funding for South Africa as well as regionally, which countries have been taking up funding?
From my experience, in terms of our activities, I will not speak for the whole country. Naturally, Mozambique, because of its proximity. I mean, we've seen, if you look at our investments, this is where we've done a lot there because of we understand it. And then we've gone into the DRC, so there has been opportunities. But I would say SADC has been, I mean, Botswana, we've done some things, Swaziland and Lesotho as well. So SADC for us has been maybe, but it's largely because of the proximity. But we've seen opportunities in the rest of the continent, but those are larger type and they take a little bit more because of the project nature of them, of those opportunities. Yeah.
Have they been really sector specific?
Largely it's been on the commodities, on the mines side. Largely that's where we've seen opportunities, and to some extent on the infrastructure. Particularly if you look into the rest of the continent, because this is where they found it. You will find it on hard infrastructure and soft telecoms and all of those. We've seen that. Also, the other sector that we've seen that has developed is the two ones: agriculture and tourism. Which I mean, naturally, tourism follows the industrial sites where I mean, when people go in there and want to open a mine, they need to be in a hotel and all of those. So that's what we've seen also happening here.